Hey, what's up guys? I'm going to talk about properties and some advanced techniques you can do with properties and stuff, attributes and whatnot you can use with them. So I'm going to start off with some basic stuff and then work up my way up to more advanced things. So let's add a control. I have to use a control because a lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about regards the designer view. So we're going to make a color picker control just to illustrate what I'm doing, and it's going to extend control. We're not actually going to create anything other than a property. So the first thing you do with a property that needs to be decorated and stuff and needs additional logic, you want to actually create a field. So I can create color, selected color or picked color. This is a field, sorry, that's not how I write fields out. I'm going to zoom in so I don't need to zoom in with Camtasia. As well, I noticed that having the Solution Explorer and properties set up in this way is nice, where everything's expanded and you switch between them with tabs because you have to do less scrolling with the property view. Okay, now that we have our field, we can actually set up the property. So public color. Sorry, I did this wrong, didn't I? It's supposed to be picked color. Get. We're going to get it. Access our field. And the set. So picked color is equal to value. So let's initialize pick color to something. So we're going to initialize it to black. That's going to be its default color, of course. And we want to specify the default color, or we want to indicate to the designer that we have a default color and this is what it is. So default value. Color black. I don't know if I can actually do that. No. I don't recall exactly how to do this. I think you have to type in, you have to specify the type name with something that's not a base type, and then this string. Okay, let's go to the designer view and drag over our color picker. I'm just going to make it a different color. And there's the picked color under music, and it's set to black. When I change it to something else, the letters are bolded to indicate that the value has changed, and then you can hit reset to put it back to black, and that's what default value does, and it's no longer bolded. As well, if the default value is actually set, it will not be inputted in the designer generated code because it's not really necessary. It's kind of insignificant, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Okay, you might want to put it in a category so it's no longer in the music category, otherwise uncategorized. So we can put this probably in I don't really know where this would go. Where would picked color go? It would probably go under data. Or we might want to create our own group for this, or category. But we should probably create our own. We could just call this input or something. And you'll see that it has automatically created a new category in the property grid, and it's under that category. You might want to make this invisible to the designer stuff. So you can say browsable is equal to, or browsable false. That'll make it so that you can't access this in the designer. So there's no input group anywhere. Sorry, I have to actually select the control. So yeah, the input group is gone because there's no properties under that group anymore. So when you set browsable to false, it also makes sure that it's not being serialized. So you're not going to see selected color set under here anymore. Whereas if I were to comment this and then change its picked color to something else, it will display in the designer generated code. So there's no point of it being there if it's not browsable. Sometimes you may want the property to be browsable, but you don't want it to be serialized. This almost never happens, but this specific attribute I'm about to show you will get you out of sticky situations if you are creating elaborate controls. So there is the designer serialization visibility. You can set this to hidden, and basically that allows the property to be browsable, but it's not going to be serialized in the designer generated code. I've only actually used this like twice. Okay, let's find some other stuff to do. So I'm going to look through these attributes here. Oh yeah, and I do recall the refresh attribute, refresh properties. So basically with this specific attribute, you can refresh the property grid when this property changes. So this all here specifies that you want to requery the properties and repaint the property grid, where down here you're just repainting. So if you're accessing your other fields directly in this property, so if I had like sedan here, then you would have to worry about refreshing your property grid manually. But if you're actually accessing the property indirectly like that, through its property and not its field, then you don't need to worry about updating the property grid. Okay, let's find something else. The display name. So if you want a more descriptive, fancy name, then you can set the display name. So we can change this to picked color with a space if we want to. And it will have a space in it now. So we can go back to form 1, click on the control, go to wherever it is, input picked color, and you'll see that it has a space there. And you probably want to set a description. It's pretty important if you're writing reusable controls. And this is typically a more user-friendly description in opposed to the XML summary. So description, what is our description? The color that has been picked. So we can go back to the designer view and select this property, and down at the bottom it says the color that has been picked. That's what we want. And of course you're definitely going to want XML summarization here, if that's even a word. Typically you want to say gets or sets to indicate that it's writable, otherwise just gets or sets the picked color. Of course I'm not going to have a lot to describe this property because it's such an abstract class, but typically you'd have something important to say about it. So I don't know if you know this or not, but this XML summarization here is just for tooltipping or hinting or whatever. That's all I know it's for, really. So we can do color picker and then type in the property name. I'm going to zoom in. I forget the property name, color picked. What is it? Or picked color, sorry. We can put our mouse over this and it will give us our summarization there. So gets or sets the picked color. Okay, you may want to mark your properties as obsolete. So we can use the obsolete attribute and we can specify a message. So this is old and Typically you don't want to raise an error or an exception, a compile time exception. This just means that you can't compile the project. If this is set to true, then the user can't use this obsolete property. Typically you just want that false. So let's go to form 1 code, try to access the property again. So it was called color picker, picked color, and then in the tooltipping here it's deprecated, and it's probably going to give me a warning. I assume it's going to give me a warning when I try to use it. Yes, it says picked color is obsolete, this is old. For some reason I built it again and it's not giving me the warning anymore. Anyhow, I'm going to set this to true, and it's just going to give me an error when I try to use this. You really should just remove it if you're going to do that. So if your property is something, usually a string, you would want to make it localizable if your application is localized. You just set this to true. It just means that you can apply different states for the property for different locales. Okay, now let's do an event for this property. So let's create a basic event. Call it picked color change, and then create an event handler. You might want to make this protected virtual so you can override it. On picked color change, I'm just following basic Microsoft naming conventions here. We don't really need to pass anything into this event handler. We expect the person interfacing with this property to actually access the public property to get the data, and opposed to using event arguments. So if pick color change not equal to null, then pick color change this event args empty, and we're going to call the handler here when we actually set this value down here, the pick color value. Okay, and you may want to only raise the event when the value has actually changed. Sometimes the value will be the same as it was before, especially if it's a Boolean. So you might want to check this way. I do it like this, so bool change is equal to value is not equal to the current value, picked color. And then you can go down here and say if changed, then on pick color change. So I'm checking the incoming value with the actual field, seeing if they're different or not. It's pretty straightforward. Another thing you may want to do, especially with integers, is provide boundaries. Here it would be hard for me to depict boundaries. I could do stuff like keep the user from setting different colors. So if value is not equal to color dot transparent, and value is not equal to color dot magenta, I can keep them from setting these two values if I want to. It would be probably better practice for me to do something like this, code guard. And that's how I would have it set up. That's it for this video. See you later.